You're listening to the LA Football Podcast.
Los Angeles, what's going on, Ramley? Welcome to the LA Football Show here on the LA Football Network. This is your RamsHouse edition of the show. Jamal Maddy, my co-host. I'm Ryan Dyrd. Excited to have all you guys here. We are in the off season, but plenty to talk about. We have a new offensive coordinator. I touched on it briefly with Skinny T last week, but obviously we want to get the Madman's thoughts on it. And the hated rival 49ers fail yet again to reach the Super Bowl. All that hype, and it goes out the door. Obviously, some factors at play there, but we might as well touch on it because obviously a 49ers loss is a Rams win, and it's fun for us in Los Angeles. So we will get into all that. But my man, what's going on, brother? How we doing? How did you enjoy that Niners loss?
I did. I mean, and ironically enough, I was in San Francisco this weekend. So to be able to sort of enjoy watching the fans or in the city really be hyped up on Saturday and then be so depleted on Sunday was quite the joy being an LA fan. So if we can't win the Super Bowl or we can't go to the playoffs, the next best thing is to see our rival get their hearts broken, and that's certainly what happened.
Yes, yeah. When I moved here in 2008, and we've kind of touched on this before, obviously LA has a ton of Niner fans. I mean, anyone that wants to die, it just doesn't know. It's a fact. Like, Rams are growing. The Rams fan base is big and strong, but it's growing more. But there is a large Niners fan base in LA. And when I moved here in 2008, obviously that was, 8 years before the Rams moved back here. The Niners were the team. And I remember I lived in Long Beach, and there was probably 4 Niner bars in Long Beach. And 3 of my roommates, I lived with 5. 1 year I lived with, or a few years I lived with 5 guys, or there's a 5 bedroom. So there's 5 of us. And another year I lived with 6. So it was almost like a frat house, if you will. But of those, every time, like 3 to 4 of them were Niner fans. And so we would go on Sundays because, I was a Bronco fan and I didn't care. Like, I just wanted to watch the game. So we'd go, there's this one bar called Gallagher's in Long Beach. Awesome bar on Broadway, but huge Niner bar. There's another bar we went to on 4th Street. Can't remember the name right now, but it was a Niner bar. There's a bar on 2nd Street. There was a Niner bar. So we know all these Niner bars. And so I was just thinking yesterday, Jamal, I was like, all right, those are probably packed. Here we are in LA, but those bars and there's many but packed with Niner fans. And I would have loved, and I'm sure some people did this, would love to be down there in like a Rams shirt or a Rams uniform and just watch them all flood out of the bar, sad as their team failed yet again. Has, no Super Bowl since, the early 90s. So it was a good day. The Rams have won 2 since then. So I know Rams fans were happy with that.
Yeah, well, I mean, Ryan, no Super Bowls since the mid 90s. They obviously went to a couple here with Jimmy G, and then they had that one with the Ravens in the Harbaugh Bowl. So again, kind of falling empty. I do feel bad for them, Ryan. They were down to essentially their 4th string quarterback, and Purdy getting hurt 6 plays into the game kind of completely changed the complexion of the game. Really didn't give them any chance. And then obviously Josh Johnson getting the concussion. I mean, for Rams fans, it'd be the equivalent of going into a playoff game with Perkins and Walford. And, we saw how much we were complaining about those guys in the regular season and not really being credible starters to even be competitive in a regular season game. So what can you expect from the Niners in that situation? So, I feel bad for them too a little bit, Ryan, to be honest with you. Even though they're the hated rival, you want to see them kind of get beat when they're full strength. Certainly was kind of taken away from them, but it just kind of sets the stage for next year. I think the Eagles got really fortunate that they didn't have to play that Niners team full strength. I think it could have been a very significantly different outcome if that were the case.
Yeah. One more question about them, but first, show is always brought to you by our friends at BetOnline. Head to betonline.ag today. Use our promo code BELIEVE. Gives you a 50% welcome bonus. I won some money on this game because obviously I took the Eagles. Never going to take the Niners, even though they say don't bet with your heart. I did bet with my heart in that one. Couldn't put money on the Niners, and I won. So it worked out well for me. So betonline.ag, promo code BELIEVE. Tell them the guys at the LA Football Network sent you. So one question for you, Jamal, and I'm mixed on it because they were down to their 4th string quarterback, and then he goes out and they're basically running the Wildcat because now we know Purdy with the torn UCL, like he literally didn't, he threw 4 passes the entire game. So I know probably what you're going to answer. I'm going to ask it anyway. So the Rams last year was talked about ad nauseum. And maybe it's also because we're in LA and cover the team. And maybe they have said about the Niners. I just haven't heard ad nauseum about going all in, mortgaging the future, yada, yada, yada. Trading 2 firsts for Stafford, trading a second and a third for Von Miller. OBJ, they signed as a free agent, so they didn't give anything up. I think people forget that they just were able to sign him. So yeah, but that's obviously been all the talk around the league was Rams go all in. They got but they won the Super Bowl, so it paid off. Now, obviously, we know what happened this year. The Niners, and you can blame injuries. I'm not saying you, but people can blame injuries, which obviously when you lose your quarterback, that is the worst injury to be able to overcome. And they still made it to the NFC Championship game. But the Niners traded 3 first-round picks for Trey Lance. Hasn't even really started much at all. He played a couple games sparingly as a rookie, obviously hurt all of this year. Traded a second, a third, a fourth, and a fifth for Christian McCaffrey. Again, maybe I'm not just hearing the right things, but I feel like I haven't heard this narrative about the Niners going all in and failing. Have you heard that? And do you agree with that? Or is it more of a, hey, they may have been fine if not their quarterback got injured?
Yeah, Ryan, I haven't heard it, so I completely agree with you there. I don't agree with it. I think that if the Niners have so much talent on offense and defense that all they need is just a credible quarterback that's not going to turn the ball over. And that certainly wasn't Jimmy G the last couple of years. And frankly, I think they found it in Purdy, and he just got hurt. I think it was totally worth going and getting McCaffrey. Now, if you're the Niners, you're kicking yourself is in this Trey Lance situation of going so all in on him potentially. But I think that the Niners are going to look long and hard. And Ryan, I'm going to make a prediction to you. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be a Niner next year. And I think that they're going to find a way to get that done and get a quarterback in there that can really sort of enable the tools around him to be successful. Because when you look at Debo and when you look at McCaffrey and Kittle and Ayuk and just everything that they have, there's just so much versatility on offense, and not to mention that front seven defensively. They have a championship team. They are significantly better than the Rams at every position on the field, with the exception of Aaron Donald and Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford. And they're not going to solve the Cooper Kupp, Aaron Donald situation. No one can. But where they can solve it is in the Matthew Stafford situation. I think this team is just too talented to come up empty. And when you look at who's in the Super Bowl right now with the Chiefs, you look at their level of talent. You look at the Eagles, their level of talent. Niners certainly have more talent than the Chiefs do right now. The Chiefs just have Superman, the best player in the game, and he's great enough to overcome all of that. I think the Eagles are comparable in terms of talent, but the Niners are a Super Bowl caliber roster. They just need like a non-bonehead quarterback. And I think that they had the guy, and unfortunately he got hurt. I'm not crying for the Niners. Why should I? I bleed LA. But I think they either need to really see what they have in Purdy or go get Rodgers. I think they're going to go get Rodgers, actually, personally.
I mean, I think my opinion is I think that should be a narrative. I mean, when you trade 3 first-round picks for a rookie and then you've literally not even seen him play, that's on you. Like, you can blame injuries, you can blame it all, but you saw enough to think this is the guy to get us over the hump, and now it's been 2 years. And so people can blame all they want. I'm not saying you're doing that, but people can blame all they want on the circumstance, but that's like what we do with, the Chargers. Like, you got to overcome it, right? You got to overcome this if you're going to be that great. So to me, I'm like, I think they should get that stigma that they've gone all in, and it just hasn't worked out for them because, whatever you want to call it. Rodgers is interesting. In my opinion, I think it's more likely that Brady ends up there than Rodgers, simply because Brady's, I feel like Brady a free agent this year, right?
Brady's a free agent.
So he's a free agent. Whereas they would have to trade for Rodgers, and Green Bay is going to be asking for, they don't have a first round pick this year, obviously, because of they're trading for Lance, and they don't have a second. They don't have a third. They don't have a fourth. They don't have a fifth because of trading for CMC. So they basically would have to give up somehow down the line picks if Green Bay would want that, or a Debo or a CMC, which would then kind of nullify the point of doing that. Now,
that's a fair point. That's a fair point. And And I will say, Ryan, if Brady goes to the Niners, it's over. Niners winning the Super Bowl next year, hands down.
And that's, I think, a lot more likely. Everyone keeps saying the Raiders. To me, it makes a lot more sense Brady goes to the Niners because A, obviously he's from there. I mean, I know there's been a tie there, but B, why would you go to the Raiders? And we're getting off topic here with the Rams, but just, bear with us. Why? Brady's a smart guy. Like, okay. Yeah. We're going to get into this, Jamal. Why not? It's our show. You see all these national guys like, okay, look at the Raiders. It's Vegas. It's, they have, they're building something. They have Devontae Adams. His old offensive coordinator is there and Josh McDaniels. But yeah, you got Pat Mahomes in that division. The Chiefs are in the Super Bowl. You got Justin Herbert, who just got Kellen Moore, and the Chargers are going to be, regardless of if they choke or not, they're going to be in the playoffs every year. And I guarantee you Russell Wilson's going to be better than what we saw last year. Like, he can't get any worse. So he's going to be at least a competitive quarterback. Brady went from the New England Patriots almost his entire tenure, albeit a couple years of Chad Pennington, with the most subpar competition between the Jets, the Bills, and the Dolphins. He leaves that and goes to the AFC South that sees Drew Brees retire, sees the Carolina dumpster fire, and sees the Falcons fire Dan Quinn and Matt Ryan all of a sudden just become aged and decrepit. And they go to the playoffs 2 years in a row at one game over 500 and under 500. So you think Brady, in 45 years old, where he is at in his career, is going to go to a division that's going to require so much to overcome, or go to the Niners that have this, whether Rams fan wanted them or not, they have a very, very good roster. They have a solid coach. The Rams are, I think, going to be a lot better, but the jury's out if they're one more run or they're going to start rebuilding. Cardinals, who knows what's going on with them. Seattle, they had a good year, but I mean, they're going to be a mediocre to fringe playoff team. It makes all the sense in the world that if he plays again, I think he's a Niner, and then that makes things real difficult for the Rams.
No, Ryan, I think you said it best, and I think the way you broke down the divisions is spot on. And when you're sort of opportunistic and you're strategic about your career, Brady approaches his career much in the way LeBron approaches his career in the NBA. They're always kind of thinking several moves ahead about what it's going to take. And Brady, even at 45, the last couple of years, has basically led the league in passing, either yards or attempts. You put Brady with Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel, Kittle, Ayuk, the fullback. I mean,
good O-line.
The O-line, that defense with Warner and those guys in the front. I mean, it's over. I mean, I'm going to quote Kenny Smith on TNT when Vince Carter had his first dunk in the dunk contest in 2000 in Golden State, ironically enough, in the Bay Area. It is over, ladies and gentlemen. We don't need to watch the NFL next season. The Niners are going to win the Super Bowl if Tom Brady becomes a Niner. It's over.
Yeah. Do you think Brady still, I don't want to say still has it, he's the GOAT, he's it, but based on this year, you think he still has the talent to really lead that? Because, I mean, there was a definite drop-off this year.
I think that a lot of it had to do with some off the field stuff. And yeah, I think my favorite meme of Tom Brady this year was proof that football causes brain damage, because Tom Brady would rather get pounded on by 350-pound men, and just pile on top of them than be married to Giselle. So I think that was my favorite meme of the year. I think Brady, look, I mean, he won the Super Bowl with Tampa. The year after, he led the league in passing. I mean, in my opinion, he should have been the MVP over Rodgers 2 years ago in 21. There was a drop-off last year. He lost a lot of weight. You could see that the personal life took a toll. And I think what was interesting is that even the Buccaneers players were saying, Brady kind of looked like Brady again the last 3 or 4 weeks of the season, which implies that the first 13 or 14 weeks of the season, he really wasn't Tom Brady. And I think that combination of his personal life with, I think, Byron Leftwich doesn't look like he was ready to be a great coach, independent of Bruce Arians. Todd Bowles, same thing. I think he needs a change of scenery. It would be the fairy tale ending to his career of him coming back home and then bringing a Super Bowl to the Niners, who have had a drought since Montana and Young. It just set up so perfectly where he'll just extend his lead in the GOAT race. I think it makes all the sense in the world. And I think if it happens, it's over. I mean, they're going to be the highest Super Bowl preseason favorite of any team I can remember, Ryan, outside of maybe that one Rodgers team in Green Bay after they had won the Super Bowl and came back. Short of that, I mean, it's going to be Super Bowl or bust for the Niners. It pains me to say that as a Rams fan. Rams have no shot next year. And I'll double down one more. I would say if Tom Brady goes to the Niners, if I was Les Snead, I'd start the rebuild. I don't think there's even any point in extending the window 1 year.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So and this is by no means obviously everyone knows this is not a pro 49ers podcast, but I think we got to lay this out. I think we got to lay this out.
As a business mind, when you look at Stafford past his prime, Donald past his prime, Ramsey past his prime, it's an aging core. They don't look like they have the fire. They don't look like they've got that killer instinct of wanting to be multiple time champions. Even McVay, I'm not sure, like he's back. He wants to do it again. The mind wants to do it. Is he going to be able to hold up that grind? And now you're telling me this roster now has the GOAT? I mean, what are we talking about? At that point, you're just kind of praying for injury. That's really the strategy, is you're praying for it. And it's a credible strategy considering how violent this sport is and how high the probability of injury is. But if you're putting the GOAT on the Niners and they're playing their A game, you don't have a chance. Start rebuilding now.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say about the Niners is this would make all the sense in the world because obviously you're getting Tom Brady, which is like you're missing that one leader piece at QB. B, it doesn't affect Brock. If you think Brock Purdy is the future, it doesn't affect that. Like, he's going to be a second-year guy coming off of a throwing elbow injury. He can sit for 1 year under Brady, get more tutelage, and then take over for you. And so it's a no. I mean, I think at this point, and we don't want to talk too much about it, but I think at this point they'd be wise to move past Trey Lance. I think that's kind of the jury's moving on from that. But so if you're a Rams fan out there, you just need to be praying that Tom Brady officially retires, because in my opinion, if he's coming back, it will be with the Niners. And they have about $17 million in cap space with this new cap number that just came out. I think they're right around that $17 million of cap, which I wouldn't be shocked if Brady, he's like, all right, 1 more year, I'll come back for 10. Like, I've made enough money in my life. Like, well, now he's splitting a lot of it with his billionaire wife. So I don't know. Maybe he does want more money now. Who knows how that whole situation is.
All the investments, Ryan, that he made in FTX and the crypto
Bitcoin.
Collapse. I think Tom Brady might need more money than we think he does.
Well, okay. Well, so you Rams fans, you got to be praying that either he retires for good or is asking for a $45 million contract that the Niners just can't give him. So that's what we got to be praying for as Rams fans. But anyway, as of now, Niners lost. All things are good and right in the world because they are not playing the Super Bowl. I was hoping the Chiefs would lose too. I tweeted earlier, Jamal, and I think I said it like back in August anyway, but I can't remember if I told you, but like worst case for me as a football fan, A, because of LAFB, who we cover, but B, just because of who we cover, I've kind of become fans of them. Worst case scenario Super Bowl for me was Chiefs Niners, which we had, just 3 years ago. And we were really close to having it again. So luckily, at least we got the Niners out of it. And we can watch the Eagles and the Andy Reid Bowl and the Kelsey Bowl, which I guess it'll be a fun game. So, and we will be down there on Radio Row in Phoenix. And the Rams, obviously, were in it last year. So no Rams players when we were on Radio Row here in LA. But I would guess there'll be a good amount of Rams players down visiting the LAFB table. So Rams fans, make sure to stay tuned for that. So let's pivot a little bit, Jamal, before we wrap up here. And didn't get to talk to you at all about the hire of Mike LaFleur as new OC of the Rams. Just what's your thoughts on it? You happy with it? You disappointed with it? You think it's a good move? You're meh? How you feeling about it?
I'm confused. I mean, why is he a good offensive coordinator? I mean, did anyone not watch the Jets the last 2 years? I mean, this is a team that finished 26th in total offense this past year, 28th the year before. What has he done in 2 years as an offensive coordinator to demonstrate that he is a credible offensive coordinator? And I think that at the end of the day, you and I have talked about McVay kind of going back to his roots, and I could see McVay taking a more active role in the offense. So is this just a figurehead in a slot, Because even if you are talking about someone, and you and I have talked about this a ton, Ryan, you need that creative tension in the room, the ability to bounce off ideas, the ability for someone to push back a little bit and really make you better. LaFleur doesn't do any of those things. I mean, I assume LaFleur makes a great cup of coffee, because that's the only thing I can think of right now as to why he is the offensive coordinator of the Rams. He's probably got some really nice combination of the milk and the steam and the sugar, maybe a little cinnamon, and creating a great latte for McVay and that coaching staff. But short of anything that he's done on the field in terms of analytical ability, tactical ability, schematically, strategically, I'm at a loss. I mean, this is sort of the opposite of what the Chargers did. They got a guy who, in Kellen Moore, who was one of the best offensive coordinators in football the last 4 years and was unemployed for less than 24 hours. LaFleur sort of performed worse. I mean, his stock went down the last 2 years than it was 2 years ago, and he got a better job. So I don't know what LaFleur is doing. Maybe this is a little bit of, I don't want to say nepotism, but obviously LaFleur and McVay, they're great friends. It's his younger brother, and so he's kind of keeping it in the family a little bit. But I wonder, especially in terms of disposition of McVay going into 23, so much that we've talked about. How much does he have left in the tank? How much fire does he have? For him to sort of revert back to what he's comfortable with. Look, I'll never question Sean McVay. He's a genius. We all know that. Not a good start for a year where you're sort of wanting him to be re-energized and be different and think differently. This is basically a glorified intern.
So I'll take the other side of it. And I agree. I didn't necessarily love it when it first announced for everything you just said. You get a guy that, obviously they had quarterback issues in New York, but, there were players, voicing out against him. It was just a weird ending to the tenure. It just, he was finally given the keys to kind of run that side of the ball, and obviously didn't go well. But the more I've thought about it, and maybe I'm just trying to talk myself into it, I don't know, or just to play the other side of the coin of what you just said. And me and Ryan talked about it a bit when he was on last week. And my first thought was, okay, you have these candidates in Thomas Brown, in Zach Robinson, that are getting these interviews elsewhere, that have been on your staff for some time. Everyone talks about how highly respected someone like Thomas Brown is, who's the assistant coach. You make him from running back coach to tight end coach to kind of give him the running game mobility to then go into the passing game mobility. And so you make him well-rounded. Like, it seemed like they were setting him up to kind of take this new role. I'm like, why not? Why then do you go to a Mike LaFleur? And I think what I've come to the conclusion of is when you see McVay's hires historically since he's been there, and almost always goes not in-house. I mean, goes and gets, obviously he knew Matt LaFleur, but then after him, it looked like there were some guys in waiting once he left. No, he goes and gets Kevin O'Connell. Defensively, all these great guys have been on the staff with Evero for years, Joe Barry for years, Aubrey Pleasant for years, Eric Henderson for years. No, after Wade Phillips, he goes and gets Brandon Staley, guy that no one knows, obviously did great things. Then he goes and gets Raheem Morris. And it was like, I was like a shoo-in. It was going to be either Henderson or Evero. It ends up being Raheem Morris. And so I think, and this is all just speculation, obviously, but that's the point of a podcast. I think the way McVay operates best is that he needs someone from the outside that can bring something different, or at least in a sense challenge his way of thinking, and either not necessarily change his mind, but bring different thoughts in that then he can either overturn or agree with and implement or whatnot. And I'll explain it this way. When you look at last year, Kevin O'Connell leaves, he brings back Liam Cohen, who basically was his protege. Like, he brought Liam Cohen up through the ranks. Liam Cohen left for a year, came back. And I think he lacked that challenge or that different thinking from a different organization. Whereas Mike LaFleur, again, I'm still trying to really get warmed up to it, but at least it's a guy that came from San Francisco, had success there, went to New York, didn't have success, but at least ran an operation outside of the Rams building. Whereas someone like a Thomas Brown, like a Zach Robinson, they've been in the building the whole time. And I think McVay needs that outside voices, if you will, to challenge him, but also maybe elevate him. So I'm just trying to talk about for the other side of the coin. That's kind of what I've come up with of why that maybe is making a little bit more sense.
Yeah, Ryan, I think it's a fair point in theory in terms of you want sort of an outside voice, but these guys are sort of an inner clique between McVay, Shanahan, LaFleur. These guys are, I mean, it's sort of like when you go to an Ivy League business school, you know, and it's sort of, you've got Harvard and you've got Wharton and then you got Stanford and, you know, it's sort of, you know, you're sort of all cut from the same cloth a little bit and you all kind of know each other and know of each other. And it's all kind of this good old boys, good old girls network. And that's kind of what this is. And so I don't know if he's going to get challenged or he's going to get a different way of thinking because all these guys came up together. And so,
think about it like this. Think about it like this. And I agree with you, but think about it like this a little bit. Your MBA or whatever, I don't know the acumen, but what, MBA from Stanford or your doctorate from Stanford? So you're Stanford alum. Obviously, you went to all great schools, but say you're protege from Stanford or whatever we want to call it, teacher's aide, someone that was with you at Stanford, follow you up. You guys went to Stanford together. You kind of tutored him around, showed him different things. You're going to have a very similar thought process. Whereas even if every mixer international you went to was with Yale and Harvard, they were at Yale and Harvard, that has a little different intricacy. Next move, you say, okay, I have this guy that I've brought up with me, but he's going to think exactly like I think because we went to all the same classes together. We had all the same professors. We did all this. Or I can get the guy that, I have drinks with once a month. We like grew up together. We're friends, but he was in Boston. It was a little different ilk. So I don't know. Maybe that's the thought process.
It's fair. I love the analogy. And I think it's a great one, Ryan. And I completely agree. Let's hope for our sake, for Rams fans' sake, that it is certainly the latter. It is the Ryan Dyrud interpretation of this and not the Jamal Magny interpretation of this. Because I think we're going to be much more successful if it was the Ryan Dyrud philosophy on this situation.
Yeah, well, you're usually right a lot more than I am, so we'll see if I get lucky on this one. But yeah, anything else you want to add on that, or any? I think that kind of covers our Rams news, at least for this show. Or
how do you think this impacts how involved McVay is going to be offensively? Do you think he's going to be more hands-on offensively? Do you think he is going to be just as much offensive coordinator as he is head coach? Or is this, hey, LaFleur is kind of my guy. You know, his older brother was my guy. I really trust him, and I'm going to be more hands-off. How do you think? You have a much deeper history of McVay and this organization than I do. I'd love to get your take on how you think he's going to behave. Also overlaying the fact that, hey, this could be his last year. He's been dealing with burnout the last couple of years. How do you think all of those things mesh together?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. I've been thinking about that a lot. We actually have a poll up on LFBnetwork.com, so you guys should all go check it out. And I posed kind of that question. Like, do you think Mike LaFleur will have any play calling responsibility? My thought is, Jamal, it'll be more similar to like the Andy Reid, Eric Bieniemy relationship, where Andy Reid's the archetype. Andy Reid handles all the serious situation. He's the true play caller. But there's instances when Bieniemy kind of takes over play calling or, you know, he leans on him for certain things. And I think last year, I don't want to show disrespect, but I feel like Liam Cohen, like, I think he just collected a paycheck basically. Like, I don't think Liam Cohen did a whole hell of a lot, at least on game days. And I think whether this is good or bad, we'll see how it works out. But I think the thought process for McVay was, here's a guy that, because I know his brother, because of the history, because of what worked well in 2017 with me and Matt, we can do the same thing with me and Mike, and it'll be kind of that Andy Reid, Eric Bieniemy relationship. So I don't know. I mean, do you think McVay is going to solely just be head coach, or do you think he'll give more responsibilities to LaFleur and
no, Ryan, I think that this is a step in the direction of saying, I am going to be much more involved offensively. And that's where I'm coming from. And there's maybe a sanity check there in LaFleur, but this is going to be sort of the way I want to do things. And we just sort of have him there for, as a backstop, just in case something happens. But we're either going to go out with a blaze of glory or we're going to flame out, on my terms.
Yeah. Or like you said, he just makes a really good latte. And he's like, you know what?
I mean,
on these 14-hour work days,
the LaFleur latte, it's got a great ring to it too. When you go up there and you're like, I'd love a regular LaFleur latte, with, a LaFleur soy latte or a LaFleur almond latte. I mean, it just rolls off the tongue. And I think he makes a phenomenal one.
It does. Yes. Cappuccino de LaFleur, I think, are going to be flowing up in Thousand Oaks for a while. So we'll see. Last thought. We'll move on from offense, but there's still 2, 3 technically head coaching openings right now. And Raheem Morris is most linked to Indianapolis. It doesn't seem like it'll be Houston. Looks like that's DeMeco Ryans' job if he wants it. And the Broncos, if he doesn't want that, the Broncos will take Ryan, or the Broncos, I believe, have already told Raheem Morris to move in a different direction. So it's kind of Indy or he's back. For the sake of this last 5 minutes, let's say Indy does hire him and Jim Irsay, gets talked out of hiring Jeff Saturday by his front office and goes for a more credible head coach, hires Raheem Morris. Rams now do not have a defensive coordinator. What's the direction you'd like to see them go at DC? Because now, if McVay wants to truly focus on the offense, as he should, he's going to need someone that can really run the defense, which, he's done a good job hiring defensive coordinators from that regard. Who do you like out there? And we've talked about it before, but just anyone else that maybe you've thought of.
Yeah, Ryan, I think, and again, it'll be challenging here in terms of willingness to let go. But I think in terms of this carousel, I mean, to me, I come back to Evero. I mean, that's who I would want in this role. I think you kind of have two options at this point. You sort of break the bank for Raheem Morris, or you go to Evero, given how this kind of coaching carousel is going to play out. I think you want someone young, hungry, innovative, but also someone that can operate in autonomy. I think that's really what you're looking for. And I think Evero fits that bill to the T, given what the Broncos were able to achieve. Obviously, Fangio built the bones and the guts of that, but Evero has done an outstanding job here. Because I think for McVay, especially now when you talk about this hire, the sense is he's leaning offense. I'm not just sort of this impartial, objective head coach. I'm going to lean much more to my roots, even more than I have done in years past. So you need someone on the defensive side that is very autonomous and very comfortable with minimal oversight, supervision, interfacing, and what have you. So that's kind of what you're looking for. Very close second to the strategy and the tactics and the on-field performance. And so I'm liking Evero more and more.
Yeah. And, McVay, and I don't want this to come out in a bad way, but as great as a head coach he is, what makes him a great head coach is he's hired really good defensive coordinators that run that and don't take, we've been at training camp. McVay's running routes with the offense. Like, he's not doing anything with the defense. He's friggin' playing cornerback against Cooper Kupp. So he wants someone that can totally and feasibly command that side of the ball. Evero's a no-brainer. Phenomenal year in Denver. Got, I think, 2 or 3 head coaching interviews after just 1 year as a coordinator. And so that's a no-brainer. 2 other names I'll throw out, Jamal, just because if we go back to I know he's not in-house now, but if we go back to the McVay doesn't hire in-house guys, and obviously Evero was with the Rams for, 5 or so seasons. So if he doesn't go that way, or if the Broncos, whoever they hire as head coach, just keeps Evero, that won't be an option. 2 other guys. One, Vance Joseph, Cardinals. I know it's a name that not a lot of people love, specifically Rams fan, because he's with the Cardinals, but got a couple head coaching interviews this cycle. Obviously was a head coach before, flamed out, but I think he's going to be a head coach maybe again. Has done some decent things down in Arizona defensively with the talent they've had down there. So that's another name. And McVay's shown that he goes after guys that are leaders, that run that side of the ball and kind of can be hands-on. And he has head coaching pedigree. He's a leader of men. He knows X's and O's. So that's a name. The other one, which I'd be very intrigued about, Jamal, Brian Flores, formerly head coach of the Miami Dolphins. Obviously was a defensive coach on the Patriots, and just this year was, I think, linebacker coach for the Steelers, or an assistant head coach with the Steelers. So that's another guy. And if the Rams and McVay have showed other things, it's, I don't want to call it rehabilitation, but taking coaches that have maybe had less success elsewhere and they come in and flourish in this organization. And I think Flores, who's probably going to be a head coach again once the whole legality stuff that he's going through ends and cleans itself up, but he can come to LA and really, I mean, he's going to command a room, he's going to be smash mouth football, and he's going to run that defense and let McVay focus on the offense. So Evra would be probably my first choice, but my second choice would probably be Brian Flores.
I love that Brian Flores call. I mean, my goodness. And it just answers the mail on so many different fronts. And I think also, Ryan, there is an appreciation that comes with being a coordinator the second time after you've been a head coach. I think that you appreciate your craft even more. You appreciate what the coach is trying to do for you and that relationship even more. And I think if McVay comes to him and says, listen, I need you to be more autonomous here, I think that's going to be really a match made in heaven, because it gives McVay what he wants, where he can kind of compartmentalize his role more, especially given where the energy levels have been the last couple of years. And B, it gives Flores a really nice audition where he's like, look, man, I wasn't really just defensive coordinator of the Rams. I was actually head coach of the Rams defense. That's sort of different. It's subtle, but different, where I led 11 men and their backups to wild success. So I can just as easily do that with 22 men and that staff and those backups. So it could be a really nice win-win where Flores gets everything that he wants, rehabilitates his brand a little bit, where his ability and his mind and his gravitas of being able to step into a locker room and really have players believe becomes the front of the narrative when you talk about Brian Flores. Because right now, when you say the words Brian Flores, the first thing that comes to mind is Miami Dolphins, lawsuit, Ross ownership, and this whole deal. It allows him to be football first again. It allows him to get an incredible audition, and it gives McVay what he wants and what he's looking for. That's a great one, Ryan. I mean, my goodness. I mean, it's only 31 days into 2023, and you're already sort of in mid-season form with your analysis. My goodness.
We never get out of it. Jamal. It's 365. And we know McVay's on a shot clock as a coach. Yep. And so that audition for Flores could be taking over this Rams organization, which could be a very good one. And I think he would find this organization is run a little better than what he dealt with down in Miami. So I think we welcome him. Yeah, just a little bit. So anyway, anything else you want to add, Jamal? I think this was a great show.
I think this was a great show. Never a dull moment. And I think lots to be excited about were the Rams. And I think let's kind of put in two prayers together. If we're the Ramley, that we find this defensive coordinator situation resolves in our favor, and we have a great one, and I'm sure that we will. And the other one, let's get on the hands and knees and beg that Tom Brady doesn't become a 49er. Those are the two prayers I'm asking the Ramley to go all in on. It's time to go all in on the prayers, okay, over the next few days to set ourselves up for success in 23.
Well, Jamal, I think we need a third prayer also, because as of the time of this recording, so whenever you listen to this, maybe this has changed, so don't come after us on Twitter if this has changed. But, and you know this, Jamal, I'm sure, but it was reported yesterday and earlier today that Vic Fangio was signing on with the Dolphins to be the DC, but now multiple other reporters, Mike Silver being one, Mike Kliss of 9 News in Denver, who obviously knows Vic Fangio from his 3 years as head coach there, have both said that while interested, Fangio has not accepted an official offer, and there's rumors that he's waiting to see if DeMeco Ryans leaves and would be interested in the Niners defensive coordinator job. So The last thing we want is Brady and Fangio going to San Francisco. So we need 3 big time prayers, Ramley, to get that Fangio goes to the Dolphins, that Brady retires, and that the Rams defensive coordinator situation is resolved here in the next week or so. So, and who knows, maybe it's not important. Maybe Vic Fangio's waiting to see what happens with the Rams DC position. Maybe he wants to come in LA. Who knows? So maybe pray for that too.
It's January 30th. And we're under siege over here, Ryan. I mean, the Chiefs and the Eagles have it easy right now compared to what the Rams have to deal with.
Seriously, it's unbelievable. So let us know your thoughts, guys. Ryan Darrett, LAFB on Twitter. LAFB Jams is Jamal. Or you can text us. If you text us, you join our community, which is awesome. We give you, updates. We do meet and greets, events, stuff like that. So text the word RamsHouse to 31032. Let us know your thoughts on Mike LaFleur. Let us know your thoughts on the defensive coordinator position, and let us know your thoughts on, or just give us your prayer requests moving forward for this Rams team. So, but thank you all for tuning in. For Jamal Madney, I'm Ryan Darrett. Everyone have a blessed week. We'll talk to you all later this week for more Rams talk.
You're listening to the LA Football Podcast.